Good morning, class. Most of you have probably heard of Walt Disney. Some of you have probably heard of his brother Roy Disney. But how many of you have heard of Dennis Hightower? My name is Anthony Cabrera, and today I'm going to talk to you about Disney, the evolution as a company, and the rise of an empire. Disney. So founded by Walt and Roy Disney in 1923 was just this beginning. A lot more led to the success of Disney as an empire. First, you have Walt and Roy Disney. Then you have the expansion movement in Europe. Then you have Dennis Hightower, which is probably the catalyst for the success in Europe. So founded in 1923 by Walt and Roy Disney, with only $500 and a dream. As they began, they grew increasingly popular, and they had their first consumer product license. It was a Mickey Mouse pencil tablet. After several years developing the Walt Disney name, the company's characters, music, children's songs, their image, they created the DCP, which is Disney Consumer Products. The headquarters was located in Burbank, California. By 1987, the division's revenue had reached a staggering $167 million, with an operating income of $97 million, all from $500 and a dream. So now we have the European expansion. So, as Disney World and Disney grew increasingly popular, Walt Disney wanted to expand. He wanted to make his brand known, so he wanted to move towards another place on the map. So, this is directly after the war. Walt Disney in 1934 looks at the map. He wanted to know where there was potential. He looked towards Europe. He met with one of his friends, or his Italian publisher, in 1934 in a personal adventure, and soon he hired a subsequent country manager for France. After this, subsequent country managers in Europe were hired throughout Europe, 8 different countries. He is credited with the foundation of the European sector of Disney. He was regarded as a living legend. By 1987, the DCP owned 8 different subsidiaries and worked in 20 different worldwide markets. Each subsidiary reported to none other than Barton Boyd. Barton Boyd was head of the DCP in Burbank, California. So each country manager was an independent sector. Each one of them acted as an independent senator. Each one of them ran their country in a different manner. Each one of them had different ways. Some used the methods of persuasion, while others used the method of force and incentives. So you have different markets. So, for example, the German market was much larger than the Portuguese market, therefore making the German manager use different tactics than the Portuguese manager. Then you have different merchandise licensing. The Germans use merchandise licensing, while the French use book and magazine licensing. European Disney, for some reason, always fell a little behind American Disney, and they were never up to par. So now we have recruiting candidates. Recruiting candidates was a point in Disney where it was 1987 where Disney had expanded. They were already in Europe, and they wanted to hire a manager for Paris. They decided to put a new headquarters in Paris, so they were searching for this manager. So Dennis Hightower and Barton Boyd were put in charge of this search. They were trying to find the perfect candidate, because this person needed to control 8 different countries and adapt to all different 8 styles. So adapting to 8 styles and 8 different countries is a big job. So they had to find the perfect candidate. So Boyd and Hightower spent several weeks in Europe, talking to different country managers, trying to find out what qualities make the perfect manager. But as time grew, and as they got to know each other, Boyd and Hightower grew very amicable, and Boyd said it. He said, "The more we traveled, the more I liked him." As a matter of fact, in June of 1987, Dennis Hightower was hired as vice president of the DCP in Europe. So who's this guy Dennis Hightower I keep mentioning? Well, Dennis Hightower was born into a military family. Dennis Hightower joined the Army at a time where blacks had little opportunity, so he joined for black leadership opportunities that were not available otherwise. In June of 1970, he resigned and began working for Xerox. During his time at Xerox, he looked around and noticed all these big people making big business moves all had their MBAs. And he thought to himself, maybe I should get an MBA. This was another career decision that would in turn affect his family. So he decided to join Harvard. He completed his MBA. Here's a man that worked directly for McKinsey after Harvard, then worked for General Electric. After restructuring the entire company, they had no need for him, so they let him go. After he was let go, he didn't know what to do. He wasn't sure whether he should put his family through another move. So he felt as he owed his family at least demographic stability. So owing his family demographic stability, he decided to work for Russell Reynolds in 1984. 2 years later, he was already the head of the office in Los Angeles. Hightower was focused on where Disney would be in 1992. He was very open-minded, and after being named VP of DCP in Europe in 1987, he wanted to know how he can expand the company more than any other individual, how he could create creative methods to improve the recognition worldwide, because he had 3 months to show everyone that they didn't make a mistake in making him VP. He had to show that he was this perfect candidate. So he took charge of these 8 different country operations. He changed the diversity in each business. He took all 8 country managers and he explained to them the importance of persuasion and the importance of trust. So we have his management styles. His management styles was through persuasion and trust. Reorganizing the office was a key trait he had. He had to reorganize everything because the previous country managers, they lacked patience, they lacked persuasion. There was always tension within the different sectors, different countries in Europe. He had to unite them as one. So he single-handedly knitted them together. So Hightower made structural changes for better efficiency. He changed the way the country managers worked. He changed the way operations were made. He made it more of an integrated group so that there could be less tension within the company. His legacy. So after knitting the countries together, he operated in 6 distinct countries, oversaw all the operations, and growth in retail value went from $650 million to a staggering $3.5 billion in 1993. Before Dennis, it was the US and the world. After Dennis, it was the US, Europe, and the world. He gave life to Europe. He made people realize the value and the potential of Europe. Dennis Hightower now looks back and admires his legacy. So, to conclude, this article changed the way I thought about Disney. Before, I thought Disney was just a place full of happiness, rainbows, and I didn't realize the sacrifices made by all the key individuals that really changed the way Disney ran, Disney operated, and how Disney evolved. So first, you had Walt and Roy Disney taking a risk, taking out $500 and turning those $500 into billions. Not only into billions, but happiness around the world. You have the expansion to Europe. Expanding to Europe in a time where war had just finished was also a major risk. Who would have thought all the potential that Europe had? Then you have a catalyst in Dennis Hightower, who completely changed European success. Dennis Hightower single-handedly united the entire of Europe. When they were falling behind, Dennis Hightower brought them back up. Dennis Hightower made a legacy, which completely changed the way we look at Disney. So when we think of Disney, we shouldn't just think about this place full of happiness and rainbows. We should think about all the key players and everything that made Disney such a happy place. Because at the end of the day, without these key players in Walt Disney and Roy Disney, or in Dennis Hightower, without them, Disney wouldn't be this large empire, this large company, or the happiest place on earth.